Hey, Sunshine, how are you? Hey, Wings. Welcome, welcome. And a happy hump day to everyone. Hey, Kim. Hey, Peggy, how we doing? Welcome in, you guys. Have a couple of good spooky ones tonight. Hey, Deborah, how are you? After 12 weeks, holy cow. Hey, Jasmine, how are you? Well, if I went back to work, if I went back to a 9 to 5, it would be 10, 11 months. I'm doing well. How are you? Yasmin, hello from London. Hello, how are you? Linda, hello. Oh, wow. Yeah, you know what? I have that. That's in my future. I have both my knees that need to get done. Mine are just destroyed. I'm at the point now where I gotta walk with a cane, which kind of sucks. The parking's great, though. I'll give it that. Well, also hello from London. We got a building UK crowd tonight. Cool. Have to let my daughter know. She lives in Liverpool. Hello, Timothy. How are you? Yeah, I need to have both mine done. It's gonna suck. Kim, you're in Florida. Oh. I haven't been to Florida in years. Hey, Sarah, how are you? Marcy, hello. How we all doing? Mr. King's Red. Well, hello from Norway. Got a few Norwegians that watch, which is really cool. I'm trying to not think of how much it's going to suck. But yeah. Oh, Sarah, that's awesome. I can't wait. Please, I don't even like it. You don't even have to do a video, but just take a picture and send it to me via DM. That would be amazing. Hey, Whistle, welcome from Maine. I gotta start tracking all the states too, because that's just. Oh, trust me, my grandmother had both of hers done years ago. My dad's has had both of his done. Yeah, it's crazy. It's yeah, we're just a family full of people who have really crappy knees. But yeah. Well, this stuff is not so much spooky. I mean, it's you know, they're classified as horror, but I wouldn't call them scary. But you are, I totally understand if you find yourself needing to bow out. I don't blame you. Hey, Sadie from Pennsylvania, how are you? Ooh, Cincinnati, Ohio in the house. I've got a couple of forbidden knowledge stories. Oh, Indy. Awesome. The company that I used to work for has a warehouse in Indy and several stores. They own Speedway Auto Parts. I am in Rochester, New York, right smack dab between Syracuse and Buffalo. Maryland in the house. Singapore. Awesome. You were in here the other night, correct? Vermont. It's a great town. I love it. Well, Amran, I am glad to have you back. That is so cool that you've come back, and listening from Singapore. That's just awesome. You grew up in West Irondequoit. I'm actually in Greece. Lived here since I was 5. Alabama, Wendy. Awesome. We're gonna give it a couple more minutes for more people to filter in, and then we'll get started with tonight's stories. Don't get me started, man. New Jersey in the house. From Jersey, Sunshine? Oh, God. I'm kidding. I have no ill will towards Jersey. Hey, crazy mama, I see you sneaking in there. Idaho, on the other hand. Don't get me started on Idaho. Another UK. We got a UK party in the house. You guys are all staying up late. Kaysville, New York. I am going to say I don't think so, because I've actually never heard of Kaysville. I'm in Western New York, near Buffalo. Go Cards. Costa Rica. Welcome back, Marlene. That's just awesome. So I got to read you guys this country list. This is wild. I'm actually just going to read you the list. We do get a lot of snow. Are you Algeria? No kidding. That's you know what? You're the first Algerian. I am going to have to add that one to the list. That's freaking awesome. That's freaking. I do keep track of all the countries because and I'll tell you why here in a second. That's amazing. West Tennessee. Awesome. I know several people from Tennessee, and from what I understand, it is a beautiful state. Okay, so I started keeping track last week when we had a whole bunch of people come in. And so far, these are the countries that have listened. Hey, Rowdy's mom, how are you? Hey, Salt Window. These are the countries that have listened. Obviously, the United States, Canada, Mexico, Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Honduras, Suriname, UK, Netherlands, Sweden, Spain, Portugal, Romania, Norway, South Africa, Japan, Kazakhstan. That one blew my mind. Philippines, let's see, Singapore, New Zealand, Scott Base in Antarctica. For God's sake. And then, so I thought about that and I was like, that's a lot. That's really wild. But I started looking at the whole entire list, and I realized something. This kills me. Oh, Malaysia and UAE. We both had those in. What this means is I have been watched from 27 countries, now 28 with Algeria, and from all 7 continents. What? Like the one I never, okay, the other ones, you think, okay, that's cool, whatever, but then you're thinking, I'm never going to get Antarctica. No, I got Antarctica too. Welcome from Puerto Rico. How are you? Hey, Eddie, how you doing, sir? Welcome in. So yeah, I have been listened to on 28 countries, from 28 countries and all 7 continents. At this point, unless somebody, listens from the International Space Station, I'm not sure where to go from here. I think if somebody popped up and said, "Hey, listening from the ISS," I would probably just shut the stream down and quit, because how is it going to get any better? They'd have to put somebody on the freaking moon and watch it from there in order to get any better than that. So, anyway, enough of that. I just thought that was wild. So cool. Tina, you are right on time. I have not even started yet, but it looks like we've got a good crowd, so I better get started here. All by myself. Sorry, I just saw that in chat. I won't ever do that again. Oh, thank you, Gemma. I really appreciate that. Well, Joanna, I am glad. I haven't even... Jules, slow down. I haven't got there yet. Don't rush me. Alrighty then. Ooh, what kind of sandwich? I've not eaten dinner yet, so I'm I hear sandwich and I'm like, ooh, I need a sandwich. All right, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Storytime with UndeadPapa. Tonight, 2 stories about the price of seeking knowledge that was never meant to be found. An ancient manuscript guarding a terrible secret, and a brilliant mind whose greatest discovery becomes his greatest nightmare. Because sometimes the questions that haunt us are far safer than the answers. So, wherever you're listening from, dim the lights, sit back, and relax, because Storytime is about to begin. Our first story tonight is Canon ALBERIC'S Scrapbook by M.R. James. There's some French words in this one. St. Bertrand de Comminges is a decayed town on the spurs of the Pyrenees, not far from Toulouse, and still nearer to Bonjour de Luchon. Yeah, I completely butchered that, and for anybody French in the house, I deeply apologize. It was the site of a bishopric until the Revolution, and has a cathedral which is visited by a certain number of tourists. In the spring of 1883, an Englishman arrived at this old-world place. I can hardly dignify it with the name of the city, for there are not 1,000 inhabitants. He was a Cambridge man who had come specially from Toulouse to see St. Bertrand's church. Wow, I cannot talk tonight. Get a little too excited. And had left two friends who were less than keen archaeologists than himself in their hotel at Toulouse, under promise to join him on the following morning. Half an hour at the church would satisfy them, and all 3 could then pursue their journey in the direction of Och, wherever that is. Sorry, these words are throwing me off. But our Englishman had come early on the day in question, and proposed to himself to fill a notebook and to use several dozens of plates in the process of describing and photographing every corner of the wonderful church that dominates the little hill of Comminges. In order to carry out this design satisfactorily, it was necessary to monopolize the verger of the church for the day. The verger, or sacristan, I prefer the latter appellation, inaccurate as it may be, was accordingly sent for by the somewhat brusque lady who keeps the inn of the Chapeau Rouge, and when he came, the Englishman found him an unexpectedly interesting object of study. It was not in the personal appearance of the little dry, wizened old man that the interest lay, for he was precisely like dozens of other church guardians in France, but in a curious, furtive, or rather hunted and oppressed air which he had. He was perpetually half glancing behind him. The muscles of his back and shoulders seemed to be hunched in a continual nervous contraction, as if he were expecting every moment to find himself in the clutch of an enemy. The Englishman hardly knew whether to put him down as a man haunted by a fixed delusion, or as one oppressed by a guilty conscience. I could make the clickety clicks. I could make that sicker. Oh, boy. The Englishman hardly knew whether to put him down as a man haunted by a fixed delusion, or as one oppressed by a guilty conscience, or as an unbearably henpecked husband. The probabilities, when reckoned up, certainly pointed to the last idea, but still, the impression conveyed was that of a more formidable persecutor than even a termagant wife. However, the Englishman, let us call him Deniston, was soon too deep in his notebook and too busy with his camera to give more than an occasional glance to the sacristan. Whenever he did look at him, he found him at no great distance, either huddling himself back against the wall or crouching in one of the gorgeous stalls. Deniston became rather fidgety after a time. Mingled suspicions that he was keeping the old man from his déjeuner, that he was regarded as likely to make away with St. Bertrand's ivory crozier, or with the dusty stuffed crocodile that hangs over the front, began to torment him. "Won't you go home?" he said at last. "I'm quite well able to finish my notes alone. You can lock me in if you like. I shall want at least 2 hours more here. And it must be cold for you, isn't it?" "Oh, good heavens," said the little man, whom the suggestion seemed to throw into a state of unaccountable terror. "Such a thing cannot be thought of for a moment. Leave monsieur alone in the church? No, 2 hours, 3 hours, all will be the same to me. I have breakfast. I am not at all cold, with many thanks to monsieur." "Very well, my little man," quoth Denison to himself. "You have been warned, and you must take the consequences." Before the expiration of the 2 hours, the stalls, the enormous dilapidated organ, the choir screen of Bishop brain working faster than my mouth tonight. Before the expiration of the 2 hours, the stalls, the enormous dilapidated organ, the choir screen of Bishop John de Moulian, the remnants of glass and tapestry, and the objects in the treasure chamber had been well and truly examined. The sacristan still keeping at Deniston's heels, and every now and then whipping round as if he had been stung, when one or other of the strange noises that trouble a large empty building fell on his ear. Curious noises they were sometimes. "Once," Deniston said to me, "I could have sworn I heard a thin metallic voice laughing high up in the tower. I darted an inquiring glance at my sacristan. He was white to the lips. 'It is he, that is. It is no one. The door is locked,' was all he said. We looked at each other for a full minute." Another little incident puzzled Deniston a good deal. He was examining a large dark picture that hangs behind the altar, one of the series illustrating the miracles of St. Bertrand. The composition of the picture is well nigh indecipherable, but there is a Latin legend below which runs thus: "How Bertrand delivered a man whom the devil long sought to strangle." Deniston was turning to the sacristan with a smile and a jocular remark of some sort on his lips, but he was confounded to see the old man on his knees, gazing at the picture with the eye of a suppliant in agony, his hands tightly clasped, and a rain of tears on his cheek. Denniston naturally pretended to have noticed nothing, but the question would not go away from him. Why should a daub of this kind affect anyone so strongly? He seemed to himself to be getting some sort of clue to the reason of the strange look that had been puzzling him all the day, and the man must be a monomaniac. But what was his monomania? It was nearly 5 o'clock. The short day was drawing in, and the church began to fill with shadows, while the curious noises, the muffled footfalls and distant talking voices that had been perceptible all day, seemed, no doubt because of the fading light and the consequently quickened sense of hearing, to become more frequent and insistent. The sacristan began for the first time to show signs of hurry and impatience. He heaved a sigh of relief when camera and notebook were finally packed up and stowed away, and hurriedly beckoned Denniston to the western door of the church under the tower. It was time to ring the angelus, and a few pulls at the reluctant rope, and the great bell Bertrand, high in the tower, began to speak, and swung her voice upon the pines and down to the valleys, loud with mountain streams, calling the dwellers on those lonely hills to remember and repeat the salutation of the angel to her whom he called blessed among women. With that, a profound quiet seemed to fall for the first time that day upon the little town. Are you frickin' kidding me right now, TikTok? What did I even say? Your live is not eligible for recommendation and restricted in search results because it contains unoriginal or reproduced content. I'm reading a story, for God's sake. How about this, TikTok? Your restrictions are bullshit. Excuse me for that. I have no idea. This keeps happening. Well, I'm going to submit it, and then I'm going to submit the appeal, and then they're basically going to deny it, which is just great. Reading a ghost story or a forbidden knowledge story by M.R. James from the 19th century. This is frustrating. Guys, I'm going to make a suggestion, and this is just me trying to mitigate the fact that this keeps happening, and I worry sometimes that they are going to kill my account altogether. If you guys would like to stay in touch in case that happens, because obviously I'll create another account and keep going, but you could always find me over on the tubes, and subscribe to me over there and you won't miss a thing, because this doesn't seem to happen over on YouTube. I wonder why. Anyway, all right. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Yes, it's just crazy that they're doing this. So if you guys want to like and share and try to keep it going, that's awesome. Same username. Yeah, UndeadPapa. I'm pretty much UndeadPapa on every platform you can find me on. That includes Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, regrettably the formerly named Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, which I don't use, but it's there. So, but I appreciate you guys very much. Either way. So hopefully TikTok will get its head out of its butt. I just, of course, you could try to. Yes, I am simultaneously on YouTube and TikTok. I've tried Clapper. I just don't like it, but that's okay. I just haven't been able to use it too. I've been able to get into it, but that's okay. So we'll just keep trucking on here and see what happens. I appreciate you guys. Yes, YouTube is up and live. I'm simultaneously streaming on both TikTok and YouTube currently. But yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys over on the tubes hitting the like button. I appreciate that very much. I do. There's a link tree in my bio, which has links to all of my socials plus my merch shop, Cash App, Venmo, that kind of thing, So, but yeah. This is a short story by 19th century author M.R. James, who it's basically about finding forbidden knowledge. So, all right, well, I'm going to get back to reading. Hopefully they will unrestrict, and we'll see what happens. The sacristan began for the first time to show signs of hurry and impatience. He heaved a sigh of relief when camera and notebook were finally packed up and stowed away, and hurriedly beckoned Deniston to the western door of the church under the tower. It was time to ring the Angelus. A few pulls at the reluctant rope, and the great bell Bertrand, high in the tower, began to speak, and swung her voice up among the pines and down to the valleys, loud with mountain streams, calling the dwellers on those lonely hills to remember and repeat the salutation of the angel to her whom he called blessed among women. With that, a profound quiet seemed to fall for the first time that day upon the little town, and Deniston and the sacristan went out of the church. On the doorstep they fell into conversation. Monsieur seemed to interest himself in the old choir books in the sacristy. Undoubtedly. I was going to ask you if there were a library in the town. No, monsieur. Perhaps there used to be one belonging to the chapter, but it is now such a small place. Here came a strange pause of irresolution, as it seemed. Then, with a sort of plunge, he went on. But if monsieur is d'amateur de vieux livres, I have at home something that might interest him. It is not 100 yards. I butchered that pronunciation. At once, all Deniston's cherished dreams of finding priceless manuscripts in untrodden corners of France flashed up, to die down again in the next moment. It was probably a stupid missile of Plantin's printing about 1580. Where was the likelihood that a place so near Toulouse would not have been ransacked long ago by collectors? However, it would be foolish not to go. He would reproach himself for ever after if he refused. So they set off. On the way, the curious resolution and sudden determination of the sacristan recurred to Deniston, and he wondered in a shamefaced way whether he was being decoyed into some purlieu to be made away with as a supposed rich Englishman. He contrived, therefore, to begin talking with his guide, and to drag in a rather clumsy fashion, the fact that he expected two friends to join him early the next morning. To his surprise, the announcement seemed to relieve the sacristan at once of some of the anxiety that oppressed him. "That is well," he said quite brightly. "That is very well. Monsieur will travel in company with friends. They will always be near him. It is the thing to travel thus in company sometimes." Terrible, terrible accent. The last word appeared to be added as an afterthought, and to bring with it a relapse into gloom for the poor little old man. They were soon at the house, which was one rather larger than its neighbors, stone-built, with a shield carved over the door, the shield of Alberic de Moulian, a collateral descendant, Denniston tells me, of Bishop John de Moulian. This Alberic was a canon of Comminges from 1680 to 1701. The upper windows of the mansion were boarded up, and the whole place bore, as does the rest of Comminges, the aspect of decaying age. Arrived on his doorstep, the sacristan paused a moment. "Perhaps," he said, "perhaps after all monsieur has not the time?" "Not at all. Lots of time. Nothing to do till tomorrow. Let us see what it is you've got." The door was opened at this point, and a face looked out. A face far younger than the sacristan's, but bearing something of the same distressing look, only here it seemed to be the mark not so much of fear for personal safety as of acute anxiety on behalf of another. Plainly the owner of the face was the sacristan's daughter, and, but for the expression I have described, she was a handsome girl enough. She brightened up considerably on seeing her father accompanied by an able-bodied stranger. A few remarks passed between father and daughter, of which Denniston only caught these words, said by the sacristan, "He was laughing in the church," words which were answered only by a look of terror from the girl. But in another minute they were in the sitting-room of the house, a small, high chamber with a stone floor, full of moving shadows cast by a wood fire that flickered on a great hearth. Something of the character of an oratory was imparted to it by a tall crucifix, which reached almost to the ceiling on one side. The figure was painted of the natural colors, and the cross was black. Under this stood a chest of some age and solidity, and when a lamp had been brought and chairs set, the sacristan went to this chest and produced therefrom, with growing excitement and nervousness, as Denniston thought, a large book wrapped in a white cloth, on which a cloth cross was rudely embroidered in red thread. Even before the wrapping had been removed, Denniston began to be interested by the size and shape of the volume. Too large for a missal, he thought, and not the shape of an antiphoner. Perhaps it may be something good, after all. The next moment the book was open, and Denniston felt that he had at last lit upon something better than good. Before him lay a large folio, bound perhaps in the late 17th century, with the arms of Canon Alberic de Moulian stamped in gold on the sides. There may have been 150 leaves of paper in the book, and on almost every one of them was fastened a leaf from an illuminated manuscript. Such a collection Denniston had hardly dreamed of in his wildest moments. Here were 10 leaves from a copy of Genesis, illustrated with pictures which could not be later than A.D. 700. Further on was a complete set of pictures from a Psalter of English execution of the very finest kind that the 13th century could produce. And perhaps best of all, there were 20 leaves of uncial writing in Latin, which, as a few words seen here and there told him at once, must belong to some very early known patristic treatise. Could it possibly be a fragment of the copy of Papias on the words of our Lord, which was known to have existed as late as the 12th century in Nimis? In any case, his mind was made up. That book must return to Cambridge with him, even if he had to draw the whole of his balance from the bank to stay at St. Bertrand until the money came. He glanced up at the sacristan to see his face yield any hint that the book was for sale. The sacristan was pale, and his lips were working. "If monsieur will turn to the end," he said. So Monsieur turned on, meeting new treasures at every rise of a leaf. And at the end of the book he came upon 2 sheets of paper of much more recent date than anything he had seen yet, which puzzled him considerably. They must be contemporary, he decided, with the unprincipled Canon Alberic, who had doubtless plundered the chapter library at St. Bertrand to form this priceless scrapbook. On the first of the paper sheets was a plan, carefully drawn and instantly recognizable by a person who knew the ground of the south aisle and cloisters of St. Bertrand's. There were curious signs looking like planetary symbols. Appeal not approved. Well, big surprise there. Boy, they just really they just really don't like me. Unbelievable. There were curious signs looking like planetary symbols and a few Hebrew words in the corners, and in the northwest angle of the cloister was a cross drawn of gold paint. Below the plan were some lines of writing in Latin, which ran thus: Answers of the 12th of December, 1694. It asked, shall I find it? Answer, thou shalt. Shall I become rich? Thou wilt. Shall I live an object of envy? Thou wilt. Shall I die in my bed? Thou wilt. A good specimen of treasure hunters' records reminds me of Mr. Minor Canon Quatermain in Old St. Paul's, was Deniston's comment, and he turned the leaf. What he then saw impressed him, as he has often told me, more than he could have conceived any drawing or picture capable of impressing him. And though the drawing he saw is no longer in existence, there is a photograph of it, which I possess, which fully bears out the statement. The picture in question was a sepia drawing at the end of the 17th century, representing, one would say at first sight, a biblical scene. For the architecture, the picture represented an interior, and the figures that had semi-classical flavor about them, which the artists of 200 years ago thought appropriate to illustrations of the Bible. On the right was a king on his throne, the throne elevated on 12 steps, a canopy overhead, soldiers on either side, evidently King Solomon. He was bending forward with outstretched scepter, in attitude of command. His face expressed horror and disgust, yet there was in it also the mark of imperious command and confident power. The left half of the picture was the strangest, however. The interest plainly centered there. On the pavement before the throne were grouped 4 soldiers, surrounding a crouching figure which must be described in a moment. A 5th soldier lay dead on the pavement, his neck distorted and his eyeballs starting from his head. The 4 surrounding guards were looking at the king. In their faces the sentiment of horror was intensified. They seemed, in fact, only restrained from flight by their implicit trust in their master. All this terror was plainly excited by the being that crouched in their midst. I entirely despair of conveying by any words the impression which this figure makes upon anyone who looks at it. I recollect once showing the photograph of the drawing to a lecturer on morphology, a person of, I was going to say, abnormally sane and unimaginative habits of mind. He absolutely refused to be alone for the rest of that evening, and he told me afterwards that for many nights he had not dared to put out his light before going to sleep. However, the main traits of the figure I can at least indicate. At first you only saw a mass corpse, matted black hair. Presently it was seen that this covered a body of fearful thinness, almost a skeleton, but with the muscles standing out like wires. The hands were of a dusky pallor, covered like the body with long, coarse hairs and hideously taloned. The eyes touched in with a burning yellow and had intensely black pupils and were fixed upon the throned king with a look of beast-like hate. Imagine one of the awful bird-catching spiders of South America translated into human form and endowed with intelligence just less than human, and you will have some faint conception of the terror inspired by the appalling effigy. One remark is universally made by those to whom I have shown the picture. It was drawn from life. As soon as the first shock of this irresistible fright had subsided, Deniston stole a look at his hosts. The sacristan's hands were pressed upon his eyes. His daughter, looking up at the cross on the wall, was telling her beads feverishly. At the last question was asked, "Is this book for sale?" There was the same hesitation, the same plunge of determination that he had noticed before, and then came the welcome answer. "If monsieur pleases." "How much do you ask for it?" "I will take 250 francs. This was confounding. Even a collector's conscience is sometimes stirred, and Deniston's conscience was tenderer than a collector's. "My good man," he said again and again, "your book is worth far more than 250 francs. I assure you, far more." But the answer did not vary. "I will take 250 francs, not more." There was really no possibility of refusing such a chance. The money was paid, the receipt signed, a glass of wine drunk over the transaction, and then the sacristan seemed to become a new man. He stood upright. He ceased to throw those suspicious glances behind him. He actually laughed, or tried to laugh. Deniston rose to go. "I shall have the honor of accompanying monsieur to his hotel," said the sacristan. "Oh, no, thanks. It isn't 100 yards. I know the way perfectly, and there is a moon." The offer was pressed 3 or 4 more times and refused as often. "Then monsieur will summon me if he finds occasion. He will keep the middle of the road. The sides are so rough." "Certainly, certainly," said Deniston, who was impatient to examine his prize by himself. And he stepped out into the passage with his book under his arm. Here he was met by the daughter. She, it appeared, was anxious to do a little business on her own account, perhaps like Gehazi, to take somewhat from the foreigner from her father, whom her father had spared. "A silver crucifix and chain for the neck. Monsieur would perhaps be good enough to accept it?" Well, really, Deniston hadn't much use for those things. What did mademoiselle want for it? "Nothing. Nothing in the world. Monsieur is more than welcome to it." The tone in which this and much more was said was unmistakably genuine, so that Deniston was reduced to profuse thanks and submitted to have the chain put around his neck. It really seemed as if he had rendered the father and daughter some service which they hardly knew how to repay. As he set off with his book, they stood at the door looking after him, and they were still looking when he waved them a last good night from the steps of the Chapeau Rouge. Dinner was over, and Deniston was in his bedroom, shut up alone with his acquisition. The landlady had manifested a particular interest in him since he had told her that he had paid a visit to the sacristan, and bought an old book from him. He thought, too, that he had heard a hurried dialogue between her and the said sacristan in the passage outside the salle à manger, some words to effect that Pierre and Bertrand would be sleeping in the house, had closed the conversation. All this time, a growing feeling of discomfort had been creeping over him. Nervous reaction, perhaps, after the delight of his discovery. Whatever it was, it resulted in a conviction that there was someone behind him, and that he was far more comfortable with his back to the wall. All this, of course, weighed light in the balance against the obvious value of the collection he had acquired, and now, as I said, he was alone in his bedroom, taking stock of Canon ALBERIC'S treasures, in which every moment revealed something more charming. "Bless Canon Alberic," said Deniston, who had an invertebrate habit of talking to himself. "I wonder where he is now. Dear me, I wish that landlady would learn to laugh in a more cheering manner. It makes one feel as if there is someone dead in the house. A half-pipe more, did you say? I think perhaps you are right. I wonder what that crucifix is that the young woman insisted on giving me. Last century, I suppose. Yes, probably. It is rather a nuisance of a thing to have round one's neck, just too heavy. Most likely her father had been wearing it for years. I think I might give it a clean-up before I put it away." He had taken the crucifix off and laid it on the table when his attention was caught by an object lying on the red cloth just by his left elbow. 2 or 3 ideas of what it might be flitted through his brain with their own incalculable quickness. A pen wrapper? No, no such thing in the house. A rat? No, too black. A large spider? I trust to goodness not. No, God, no. A hand like the hand in that picture. In another infinitesimal flash he had taken it in. Pale, dusky skin, covered with nothing but bones and tendons of appalling strength. Coarse black hairs, longer than ever grew on a human hand, nails rising from the ends of the fingers and curving sharply down and forward, gray, horny, and wrinkled. He flew out of his chair with deadly, inconceivable terror clutching his heart. The shape, whose left hand rested on the table, was rising to a standing posture behind his seat, its right hand crooked above his scalp. There was black and tattered drapery about it. The coarse hair covered it as in the drawing. The lower jaw was thin. What can I call it? Shallow, like a beast's. Teeth showed behind the black lips. There was no nose, the eyes of a fiery yellow against which the pupils showed black and intense, and the exulting hate and thirst to destroy life which shone there were the most horrifying features of the whole vision. There was intelligence of a kind in them, intelligence beyond that of a beast, below that of a man. The feelings which this horror stirred in Deniston were the intensest physical fear and the most profound mental loathing. What did he do? What could he do? He has never been quite certain what words he said, but he knows that he spoke, that he grasped blindly at the silver crucifix, that he was conscious of a movement towards him on the part of the demon, and that he screamed with the voice of an animal in hideous pain. Pierre and Bertrand, the 2 sturdy little serving men who rushed in, saw nothing, but felt themselves thrust aside by something that passed out between them and found Deniston in a swoon. They sat up with him that night, and his 2 friends were at St. Bertrand by 9 o'clock the next morning. He himself, though still shaken and nervous, was almost himself by that time, and his story found credence with them, though not until they had seen the drawing and talked with the sacristan. Almost at dawn the little man had come to the inn on some pretense, and had listened with the deepest interest to the story retailed by the landlady. He showed no surprise. "It is he! It is he! I've seen him myself," was his only comment, and all questionings but one reply was vouchsafed. "Deux fois je l'ai vu, mille fois je l'ai senti." He would tell them something of the provenance of the book, nor any details of his experiences. "I shall soon sleep, and my rest will be sweet. Why should you trouble me?" he said. We shall never know what he, or Canon Alberic de Moulins, suffered. At the back of that faithful drawing were some lines of writing which may be supposed to throw light on the situation. I have never quite understood what was Deniston's view of the events I have narrated. He quoted to me once a text from Ecclesiasticus: "Some spirits there be that are created for vengeance, and in their fury lay on sore strokes." In another occasion he said, "Isaiah was a very sensible man. Doesn't he say something about night monsters living in the ruins of Babylon? These things are rather beyond us at present." Another confidence of his impressed me rather, and I sympathize with it. We had been last year in Comminges to see Canon Alberic's tomb. It is a great marble erection with an effigy of the canon in a large wig and soutane, and an elaborate eulogy of his learning below. I saw Deniston talking for some time with the vicar of St. Bertrand's, and as we drove away he said to me, "I hope it isn't wrong. You know I am a Presbyterian, but I believe there will be a saying of Mass and singing of dirges for Alberic de Moulins' rest." Then he added, with a touch of the northern British in his tone, "I had no notion they came so dear." Well, that's the end of that one. I do appreciate you guys sticking with me, even though it didn't appear on your screen. Using a mobile device to view comments. What? It's detected that the live chat didn't appear on your screen in the past 2 minutes. Try using a mobile It's been... What is going on with TikTok? Holy cow. Jeez Louise. I swear to God, it really wants to kill me. Appeal not approved. We have reviewed your live. No, you didn't. And found that your live content violates our community guidelines. No, it doesn't. The visibility restriction duration of your live cannot be adjusted. Yeah, because a person didn't actually look at it. Sorry, this is frustrating. Oh, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Regardless of the fact that TikTok doesn't like me tonight. Yeah, well, you know... Oh, and I appreciate you guys, trust me. It's just crazy that they're just, I don't know. It's frustrating. Really, really frustrating. Are you guys able to repost? I'm curious if it's letting you repost now. Yeah, it's giving me the angry Jim Jams too. Well, I enjoy you being here, Marlene. I really do. I appreciate that, Jasmine. I do. Well, so we have two options here. I can either restart the live like I did the last time, or we could just forage forward. It's weird as letting you share it, but it's not letting anybody repost. That's crazy. All right. Well, forage forward. Well, yeah, I think that's probably my best bet at this point. Update your live message just before going live. You know, I had to because it didn't actually so like I created the live event and then it so what I usually do is I create a live event, and then when I go live, it tells me that it's going to use that event, but then the description in the event doesn't match what I put in there. So I'm honestly wondering if I don't bother creating. Yeah, I kind of wonder if I just don't bother creating the live events anymore, because I'm wondering if that's the issue. Which I don't know that they help anyway, so it's kind of yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to stop creating those stupid things. I don't know. Usually last 10 minutes. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm not worried about it. At this point, it's kind of moot. And if it's 10 minutes, it's already over, so who knows? It did after I changed it. But it wasn't like that when I first went live. The description was completely different. It wasn't even close to what I initially had. So that's really kind of frustrating. So I think I'm not going to create those live events because obviously they're not using them, or they're not matching. So I might as well just go on the live and do that. The live events are kind of, I don't know if it really makes a difference anyway. It's not like I'm selling anything, so yeah. So anyway, well, I really appreciate everybody's support and everybody sticking around. I appreciate all 6 of you watching over there on the tubes. I really do appreciate that. Yeah. So, well, I think when I do Friday, I'm not gonna create a live event for it because it seems to be a waste of time. So, or it seems to be just not, it seems to be screwing up. So, and causing me more problems than it's worth. But we love TikTok, and we love the TikTok shop. I've actually purchased, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard, Angie. So, but I'm going to keep going. I've got another story to read, so might as well forage forward. I mean, the people that are here, I might as well read to you. It's what I do, is it not? No, I know. No, I'm not selling anything. Like, I'm not doing, because one of the things that they give you options for when you create a live event, is it a selling live or a regular live, or I don't know what the other option is, but yeah, it's like, no, I'm not shilling for the TikTok shop. Sorry. Damn straight, Eddie. Damn straight. We are nothing if not stubborn. We love the TikTok shop. I can't say I don't because I've purchased things on there and things that I actually, well, like the chair that I'm currently sitting in, I purchased on the TikTok shop. So, and actually Friday, you guys will actually see something a little different because I am actually finally putting my booth together. So I will be in the same physical spot, but I will be surrounded by sound deadening material. Go figure. Yeah. So let us continue, shall we? In defiance of the man trying to shut us down. And now we move on from a forgotten manuscript to a forgotten truth. Yeah, you guys don't even have the TikTok shop up there. Yeah, it's, I don't know. Some doors once opened can never be closed. Some discoveries change a life forever. Others change everything. Our next story is The Man Who Found Out by Algernon Blackwood. I remembered that time. I did it. I did it. Settle down. I did it. I did the thing, I swear. I swear I did it. I did it. I swear. Hey, Tessa. I swear. I swear. One. What thing? Not the thing you know about. Am I being? I'm not. I'm a bad boy. I'm gonna get myself in trouble. And Tessa, I'm gonna blame you. Yes, I did announce that. Tessa was not here when I did announce it, but yes, she is going to be a guest narrator, and I'm going to conate. I'm going to conate. I'm going to conate with her. I'm going to co-narrate with her. Good Lord. And we'll be doing a wonderful story from the 18th century or 19th century called The Yellow Wallpaper. I did tell the peeps. You just weren't here to hear it. I let them in on the secret. It's going to be fun. We just have to nail down the exact date and the setup, and we'll be good to go. Anyway, you guys have got me off on tangents now. This is the problem. You get me talking about something, and it's like rabbit hole. All right. The Man Who Found Out by Algernon Blackwood. 1. Professor Mark Ebor, the scientist, led a double life. And the only persons who knew were his assistant, Dr. Laidlaw, and his publishers. But a double life need not always be a bad one, and as Dr. Laidlaw and the gratified publishers well knew, the parallel lives of this particular man were equally good, and indefinitely produced would certainly have ended in a heaven somewhere that can suitably contain such strangely opposite characteristics as his remarkable personality combined. For Mark Ebor, FRS, etc., was that unique combination hardly ever met with in actual life, a man of science and a mystic. As the first, his name stood in the gallery of the great, and as the second, But there came the mystery, for under the pseudonym of Pilgrim, the author of that brilliant series of books that appealed to so many, his identity was as well concealed as that of the anonymous writer of the weather reports in a daily newspaper. Thousands read the sanguine, optimistic, stimulating little books that issued annually from the pen of Pilgrim, and thousands bore their daily burdens better for having read. While the press generally agreed that the author, besides being an incorrigible enthusiast and optimist, was also a woman. But no one ever succeeded in penetrating the veil of anonymity that discovered that Pilgrim and the biologist were one and the same person. Mark Ebor, as Dr. Laidlaw knew him in his laboratory, was one man, but Mark Ebor, as he sometimes saw him after work was over, with rapt eyes and ecstatic face, discussing the possibilities of union with God and the future of the human race, was quite another. "I have always held, as you know," he was saying one evening as he sat in the little study beyond the laboratory with his assistant and intimate, "that vision should play a large part in the life of the awakened man. Not to be regarded as infallible, of course, but to be observed and made use of as a guidepost to possibilities." "I am aware of your particular views, sir," the young doctor put in deferentially, yet with a certain impatience. "For visions come from a region of the consciousness where observation and experiment are out of the question," pursued the other with enthusiasm, not noticing the interruption. "And while they should be checked by reason afterwards, they should not be laughed at or ignored. All inspiration, I hold, is of the nature of interior vision, and all of our best knowledge has come, such is my confirmed belief, as a sudden revelation to the brain prepared to receive it. Prepared by hard work first, but by concentration, by the closest possible study of ordinary phenomena," Dr. Laidlaw allowed himself to observe. "Perhaps," sighed the other, "but by a process none the less of spiritual illumination. The best match in the world will not light a candle unless the wick be first suitably prepared." It was Laidlaw's turn to sigh. He knew so well the impossibility of arguing with his chief when he was in the regions of the mystic. But at the same time the respect he felt for his tremendous attainments was so sincere that he always listened with attention and deference, wondering how far the great man would go, and to what end this curious combination of logic and illumination would eventually lead him. "Only last night," continued the elder man, a sort of light coming into his rugged features, "the vision came to me again, the one that has haunted me at intervals ever since my youth, and that will not be denied." Dr. Laidlaw fidgeted in his chair. "About the tablets of the gods, you mean, and that they lie somewhere hidden in the sands?" he said patiently. A sudden gleam of interest came into his face as he turned to catch the professor's reply. "And that I am to be the one to find them, to decipher them, and to give the great knowledge to the world." "Who will not believe?" laughed Laidlaw shortly, yet interested in spite of his thinly veiled contempt. "Because even the keenest of minds in the right sense of the word are hopelessly unscientific," replied the other gently, his face positively aglow with the memory of his vision. "Yet what is more likely," he continued after a moment's pause, peering into space with rapt eyes that saw things too wonderful for exact language to describe, "than that there should have been given to man in the first stages of the world some record of the purpose and problem that have been set him to solve. In a word," he cried, fixing his shining eyes upon the face of his perplexed assistant, "that God's messengers in the far-off ages should have been given to his creatures some full statement of the secrets of the world, of the secret of the soul, of the meaning of life and death, the explanation of our being here, and to what great end we are destined in the ultimate fullness of things. Dr. Laidlaw sat speechless. These outbursts of mystical enthusiasm he had witnessed before. With any other man he would not have listened to a single sentence, but to Professor Ebor, man of knowledge and profound investigator, he listened with respect, because he regarded this condition as temporary and pathological, and in some sense a reaction from the intense strain of the prolonged mental concentration of many days. He smiled, with something between sympathy and resignation as he met the other's rapt gaze. Yes, this is Punk Punch. It's good stuff. Though I do like their grapefruit flavor. Reminds me of a juiced up Fresca. But you have said, sir, at other times that you consider the ultimate secrets to be screened from all possible. The ultimate secrets, yes, came the unperturbed reply. But there lies buried somewhere an indestructible record of the secret meaning of life, originally known to men in the days of their pristine innocence. I am convinced. And by this strange vision often vouchsafed for me, I am equally sure that one day it shall be given to me to announce to a weary world this glorious and terrific message. And he continued at great length and in glowing language to describe the species of vivid dream that had come to him at intervals since the earliest childhood, showing in detail how he discovered these very tablets of the gods and proclaimed their splendid contents, whose precise nature was always, however, withheld from him in the vision to a patient and suffering humanity. The scrutator, sir, well described Pilgrim as the apostle of hope, said the young doctor gently, and when he had finished, and now, if that reviewer could hear you speak and realize from what strange depths comes your simple faith. The professor held up his hand, and the smile of a little child broke over his face like sunshine in the morning. Half the good my books do would be instantly destroyed, he said sadly. They would say that I wrote with my tongue in my cheek. But wait, he added significantly, wait till I find these tablets of the gods. Wait till I hold the solutions of the world problems in my hands. Wait till the light of this new revelation breaks upon confused humanity, and it wakes to find its bravest hopes justified. And then, my dear Laidlaw, he broke off suddenly, but the doctor, cleverly guessing the thought in his mind, caught him up immediately. Perhaps this very summer, he said, trying hard to make the suggestion keep pace with honesty. In your explorations in Assyria, your digging in the remote civilization of what was once Chaldea, you may find what you dream of. The professor held up his hand, and the smile of a fine old face. Perhaps, he murmured softly, perhaps. And the young doctor, thanking the gods of science that his leader's aberrations were of so harmless a character, went home strong in the certitude of his knowledge of externals, proud that he was able to refer his visions to self-suggestion, and wondering complacently whether in his old age he might not after all suffer himself from some visitations of the very kind that afflicted his respected chief. And as he got into bed and thought again of his master's rugged face and finely shaped head, and the deep lines traced by years of work and self-discipline, he turned over on his pillow and fell asleep with a sigh that was half wonder, half regret. Two. It was in February, 9 months later, when Dr. Laidlaw made his way to Charing Cross to meet his chief after his long absence of travel and exploration. The vision about the so-called tablets of the gods had meanwhile passed almost entirely from his memory. There were few people on the train, for the stream of traffic was now running the other way, and he had no difficulty in finding the man he had come to meet. The shock of white hair beneath the low-crowned felt hat had alone enough to distinguish him by easily. "Here I am at last," exclaimed the professor, somewhat wearily, clasping his friend's hand as he listened to the young doctor's warm greetings and questions. "Here I am, a little older, and much dirtier than when you last saw me." He glanced down laughingly at his travel-stained garments. "And much wiser," said Laidlaw, with a smile, as he bustled about the platform for porters and gave his chief the latest scientific news. At last they came down to practical considerations. "And your luggage, where is that? You must have tons of it, I suppose," said Laidlaw. "Hardly anything," Professor Ebor answered. "Nothing, in fact, what you see. "Nothing but this handbag?" laughed the other, thinking he was joking. "And a small portmanteau in the van," was the quiet reply. "I have no other luggage." "You have no other luggage," repeated Laidlaw, turning sharply to see if he were in earnest. "Why should I need more?" the professor added simply. Something in the man's face or voice or manner, the doctor hardly knew which, suddenly struck him as strange. There was a change in him, a change so profound, so little on the surface, that at first he had not become aware of it. For a moment it was as though an utterly alien personality stood before him in that noisy, bustling throng. Here, in all the homely, friendly turmoil of a Charing Cross crowd, a curious feeling of cold passed over his heart, touching his life with icy finger, so that he actually trembled and felt afraid. He looked up quickly at his friend, his mind working with startled and unwelcome thoughts. "Only this," he repeated, indicating the bag. "But where's all the stuff you went away with? And have you brought nothing home? No treasures?" "This is all I have," the other said briefly. The pale smile that went with the words caused the doctor a second indescribable sensation of uneasiness. Something was very wrong. Something was very queer. He wondered now that he had not noticed it sooner. "The rest follows, of course, by slow freight," he added tactfully and as naturally as possible. "But come, sir, you must be tired and want of food after your long journey. I'll get a taxi at once, and we can see about the other luggage afterwards." It seemed to him he hardly knew quite what he was saying. The change in his friend had come upon him so suddenly, and now grew upon him more and more distressingly. Yet he could not make out exactly in what it consisted. A terrible suspicion began to take shape in his mind, troubling him dreadfully. "I am neither very tired nor in need of food, thank you," the professor said quietly. "And this is all I have. There is no luggage to follow. I have brought home nothing but what you see." His words conveyed finality. They got into a taxi, tipped the porter, who had been staring in amazement at the venerable figure of the scientist, and were conveyed slowly and noisily to the house in the north of London where the laboratory was, the scene of their labors of years. And the whole way Professor Ebor uttered no word, nor did Dr. Laidlaw find the courage to ask a single question. It was only late that night before he took his departure, as the two men were standing before the fire in the study. That study where they had discussed so many problems of vital and absorbing interest that Dr. Laidlaw at last found strength to come to the point with direct questions. The professor had been giving him a superficial yet desultory account of his travels, of his journeys by camel, of his encampments among the mountains and in the desert, and of his explorations among the buried temples and deeper into the waste of the prehistoric sands, when suddenly the doctor came to the desired point with a kind of nervous rush, almost like a frightened boy. "And you found," he began, stammering, looking at the other's dreadfully altered face, from which every line of hope and cheerfulness seemed to have been obliterated as a sponge wipes markings from the slate. You found?" "I found," replied the other in a solemn voice, and it was the voice of the mystic rather than the man of science. "I found what I went to seek. The vision never once failed me. It led me straight to the place like a star in the heavens. I found the tablets of the gods." Dr. Laidlaw caught his breath and steadied himself on the back of a chair. The words felt like particles of ice upon his heart. For the first time the professor uttered the well-known phrase without the glow of light and wonder in his face that always accompanied it. "You have brought them," he faltered. "I have brought them home," said the other, in a voice with a ring like iron, "and I have deciphered them." Profound despair, the bloom of outer darkness, the dead sound of a hopeless soul freezing in the utter cold of space seemed to fill in the pauses between the brief sentences. A silence followed, during which Dr. Laidlaw saw nothing but the white face before him alternately fade and return, and it was like the face of a dead man. "They are, alas, indestructible," he heard the voice continue with its even metallic ring. "Indestructible," Laidlaw repeated mechanically, hardly knowing what he was saying. Again, a silence of several minutes passed, during which, with a creeping cold about his heart, he stood and stared into the eyes of the man he had known and loved so long. Aye, and worshipped too. The man who had first opened his own eyes when they were blind, and had led him to the gates of knowledge and no little distance along the difficult path beyond. The man who, in another direction, had passed on the strength of his faith into the hearts of thousands by his books. "I may see them?" he asked at last, in a low voice he hardly recognized as his own. "You will let me know their message?" Professor Ebor kept his eyes fixedly upon his assistant's face as he answered, with a smile that was more like a grin of death than a living human smile. "When I am gone," he whispered, "when I have passed away, then you shall find them and read the translation I have made. And then, too, in your turn, you must try with the latest resources of science at your disposal to aid you, to compass their utter destruction." He paused a moment, and his face grew pale as the face of a corpse. "Until that time," he added presently without looking up, "I must ask you not to refer to the subject again, and to keep my confidence meanwhile. Absolutely." III. A year passed slowly by, and at the end of it Dr. Laidlaw had found it necessary to sever his working connection with his friend and one-time leader. Professor Ebor was no longer the same man. The light had gone out of his life. The laboratory was closed. He no longer put pen to paper or applied his mind to a single problem. In the short space of a few months, he had passed from a hale and hearty man of late middle life to the condition of old age. A man collapsed and on the edge of dissolution. Death, it was plain, lay waiting for him in the shadows of any day, and he knew it. To describe faithfully the nature of this profound alteration in his character and temperament was not easy, but Dr. Laidlaw summed it up to himself in 3 words: loss of hope. The splendid mental powers remained indeed undimmed, but the incentive to use them for the help of others, had gone. The character still held to its fine and unselfish habits of years, but the far goal to which they had been leading strings had faded away. The desire for knowledge for its own sake, had died, and the passionate hope which hitherto had animated with tireless energy the heart and brain of this splendidly equipped intellect had suffered total eclipse. The central fires had gone out. Nothing was worth doing, thinking, working for. There was nothing to work for any longer. The professor's first step was to recall as many of his books as possible. His second, to close his laboratory and stop all research. He gave no explanation. He invited no questions. His whole personality crumbled away, so to speak, till his daily life became a mere mechanical process of clothing the body, feeding the body, keeping it in good health so as to avoid physical discomfort, and, above all, doing nothing that could interfere with sleep. The professor did everything he could to lengthen the hours of sleep and therefore forgetfulness. It was clear enough to Dr. Laidlaw. A weaker man, he knew, would have sought to lose himself in one form or another of sensual indulgence, sleeping draughts, drink, the first pleasures that came to hand. Self-destruction would have been the method of a little bolder type, and deliberate evil-doing. Poisoning with his awful knowledge all he could, the means of still another kind of man. Mark Ebor was none of these. He held himself under fine control, facing silently without complaint the terrible facts he honestly believed himself to have been unfortunate enough to discover, even to his intimate friend and assistant. Dr. Laidlaw vouchsafed no word of true explanation or lament. He went straight forward to the end, knowing well that the end was not very far away. And death came very quietly one day to him. As he was sitting in the armchair of the study, directly facing the doors of the laboratory, the doors that no longer opened. Dr. Laidlaw, by happy chance, was with him at the time, and just able to reach his side in response to the sudden painful efforts for breath. Just in time, too, to catch the murmured words that fell from the pallid lips like a message from the other side of the grave. Read them, if you must, and, if you can, destroy. But his voice sank so low that Dr. Laidlaw only just caught the dying syllables. But never, never give them to the world. And like a gray bundle of dust, loosely gathered up in an old garment, the professor sank back into his chair and expired. But this was only the death of the body. His spirit had died 2 years before. 4. The estate of the dead man was small and uncomplicated, and Dr. Laidlaw was sole executor and residuary legatee. Legatee? Well, whatever. These men and their vocabularies had no difficulty in settling it up. A month after the funeral, he was sitting alone in his upstairs library, the last sad duties completed, and his mind full of poignant memories and regrets for the loss of a friend he had revered and loved, and to whom his debt was so incalculably great. The last 2 years, indeed, had been for him terrible. To watch the swift decay of the greatest combination of heart and brain he had ever known, and to realize he was powerless to help, was a source of profound grief to him that would remain to the end of his days. At the same time, an insatiable curiosity possessed him. The study of dementia was, of course, outside his special province as a specialist, but he knew enough of it to understand how small a matter might be the actual cause of how great an illusion, and he had been devoured from the very beginning by a ceaseless and increasing anxiety to know what the professor had found in the sands of Chaldea. What these precious tablets of the gods might be, and particularly, for this was the real cause that had sapped the man's sanity and hope, what the inscription was that he had believed to have deciphered thereon. The curious feature of it all to his own mind was that whereas his friend had dreamed of finding a message of glorious hope and comfort, he had apparently found, so far as he had found anything intelligible at all, and not invented the whole thing in his dementia, that the secret of the world and the meaning of life and death was of so terrible a nature that it robbed the heart of courage and the soul of hope. What, then, could be the contents of the little brown parcel the professor had bequeathed to him with his pregnant, dying sentences? Actually, his hand was trembling as he turned to the writing table and began slowly to unfasten a small, old-fashioned desk on which the small gilt initials M.E. stood forth as a melancholy memento. He put the key into the lock and half turned it. Then suddenly he stopped and looked about him. Was that a sound at the back of the room? It was just as though someone had laughed, and then tried to smother the laugh with a cough. A slight shiver ran over him as he stood listening. "This is absurd," he said aloud. "Too absurd for belief, that I should be so nervous. It's the effect of curiosity unduly prolonged." He smiled a little sadly, and his eyes wandered to the blue summer sky and the plain trees swaying in the wind below his windows. "It's the reaction," he continued, "the curiosity of 2 years to be quenched in a single moment. The nervous tension, of course, must be considerable." He turned back to the brown desk and opened it without further delay. His hand was firm now, and he took out the paper parcel that lay inside without a tremor. It was heavy. A moment later there lay on the table before him a couple of weather-worn plaques of gray stone. They looked like stone, although they felt like metal, on which he saw markings of a curious character that might have been the mere tracings of natural forces through the ages, or, equally well, the half-obliterated hieroglyphs cut upon their surface in past centuries by the more or less untutored hand of a common scribe. He lifted each stone in turn and examined it carefully, It seemed to him that a faint glow of heat passed from the substance into his skin, and he put them down again suddenly, as with a gesture of uneasiness. "Very clever or very imaginative man," he said to himself, "who could squeeze the secrets of life and death from such broken lines as these." Then he turned to a yellow envelope lying inside them in the desk, with a single word on the outside in the writing of the professor, the word translation. "Hey, Kaylee, how are you doing? Glad to see you." "Now," he thought, taking it up with a sudden violence to conceal his nervousness, "now for the great solution, now to learn the meaning of the words, and why mankind was made, and why discipline is worthwhile, and sacrifice and pain the true law of advancement." There was the shadow of a sneer in his voice, and yet something in him shivered at the same time. He held the envelope as though weighing it in his hand, his mind pondering many things. Then curiosity won the day, and he suddenly tore it open with the gesture of an actor who tears open a letter on the stage, knowing there is no real writing inside at all. A page of finely written script in the late scientist's handwriting lay before him. He read it through from beginning to end, missing no word, uttering each syllable distinctly under his breath as he read. The pallor of his face grew ghastly as he neared the end. He began to shake all over as with ague. His breath came heavily in gasps. He still gripped the sheet of paper, however, and deliberately, as by an intense effort of will, read it through a second time from beginning to end. And this time, as the last syllable dropped from his lips, the whole face of the man flamed with a sudden and terrible anger. His skin became deep, deep red, and he clenched his teeth. With all the strength of his vigorous soul, he was struggling to keep control of himself. For perhaps 5 minutes he stood there beside the table without stirring a muscle. He might have been carved out of stone. His eyes were shut, and only the heaving of the chest betrayed the fact that he was a living being. Then, with a strange quietness, he lit a match and applied it to the sheet of paper he held in his hand. The ashes fell slowly about him piece by piece, and he blew them from the window-sill into the air, his eyes following them as they floated away on the summer wind that breathed so warmly over the world. He turned back slowly into the room. Although his actions and movements were absolutely steady and controlled, it was clear that he was on the edge of violent action. A hurricane might burst upon the still room any moment. His muscles were tense and rigid. Then suddenly he whitened, collapsed, and sank backwards into a chair like a tumbled bundle of inert matter. He had fainted. In less than half an hour he recovered consciousness and sat up. As before, he made no sound. Not a syllable passed his lips. He rose quietly and looked about the room. Then he did a curious thing. Taking a heavy stick from the rack in the corner, he approached the mantelpiece, and with a heavy, shattering blow, he smashed the clock to pieces. The glass fell in shivering atoms. "Cease your lying voice forever," he said, in curiously still, even tone. "There is no such thing as time." He took the watch from his pocket, swung it around several times by the long gold chain, smashed it into smithereens against the wall with a single blow, and then walked into his laboratory next door and hung its broken body on the bones of the skeleton in the corner of the room. "Let one damned mockery hang upon another," he said, smiling oddly. "Delusions, both of you, and cruel as false." He slowly moved back to the front room. He stopped opposite the bookcase where stood in a row the scriptures of the world, choicely bound and exquisitely printed, the late professor's most treasured possessions, and next to them several books signed Pilgrim. One by one he took them from the shelf and hurled them through the open window. "A devil's dreams! A devil's foolish dreams!" he cried with a vicious laugh. Presently he stopped from sheer exhaustion. He turned his eyes slowly to the wall opposite, where hung a weird array of Eastern swords and daggers, scimitars and spears, the collection of many journeys. He crossed the room and ran his finger along the edge. His mind seemed to waver. "No," he muttered presently. "Not that way. There are easier and better ways than that." He took his hat and passed downstairs into the street. 5. It was 5 o'clock, and the June sun lay hot upon the pavement. He felt the metal doorknob burn the palm of his hand. "Ah, Laidlaw, this is well met," cried a voice from it at his elbow. "I was in fact of coming to see you. I have a case that will interest you, and besides, I remembered that you favored your tea with orange leaves, and I'll admit it was Alexis Stephen, the great hypnotic doctor." "I've had no tea today," Laidlaw said in a dazed manner, after staring for a moment as though the other had struck him in the face. A new idea had entered his mind. "What's the matter?" asked Dr. Stephen quickly. "Something's wrong with you. It's this sudden heat or overwork. Come, man, let's go inside." A sudden light broke upon the face of the younger man, the light of a heaven-sent inspiration. He looked into his friend's face and told a direct lie. "Odd," he said. "I myself was just coming to see you. I have something of great importance to test your confidence with, but in your house, please," as Stephen urged him towards his own door. "In your house. It's only round the corner, and I cannot go back there to my rooms till I have told you." "I'm your patient for the moment," he said, stammering. He added stammeringly as soon as they were seated in the privacy of the hypnotist's sanctum, "And I want, "My dear Laidlaw," interrupted the other in that soothing voice of command which had suggested to many a suffering soul that the cure for its pain lay in the powers of its own reawakened will. "I am always at your service, as you know. You have only to tell me what I can do for you, and I will do it." He showed every desire to help him out. His manner was indescribably tactful and direct. Dr. Laidlaw looked up into his face. "I surrender my will to you," he said, already calmed by the other's healing presence, "and I want you to treat me hypnotically, and at once. I want you to suggest to me," his voice became very tense, "that I shall forget till I die everything that has occurred to me during the last 2 hours. Till I die, mind," he added with solemn emphasis, "till I die." He floundered and stammered like a frightened boy. Alexis Stephen looked at him fixedly without speaking. "And further," Laidlaw continued, "I want you to ask me no questions. I wish to forget forever something I have recently discovered, something so terrible and yet so obvious that I can hardly understand why it is not patent to every mind in the world. For I have had a moment of absolute clear vision, of merciless clairvoyance. But I want no one else in the world to know what it is. Least of all, old friend, yourself." He talked in utter confusion and hardly knew what he was saying, but the pain on his face and the anguish in his voice were an instant passport to the other's heart. "Nothing is easier," replied Dr. Stephen, after a hesitation so slight that the other probably did not even notice it. "Come into my other room, where we shall not be disturbed. I can heal you. Your memory of the last 2 hours shall be wiped out as though it had never been. You can trust me, absolutely." "I know I can," Laidlaw said simply as he followed him. An hour later they passed back into the front room. The sun was already behind the houses opposite, and the shadows began to gather. "It went off easily?" Laidlaw asked. "You were a little obstinate at first, but though you came in like a lion, you went out like a lamb. I let you sleep a bit afterwards." Dr. Stephen kept his eyes rather steadily upon his friend's face. "What were you doing by the fire before you came here?" he asked, pausing in a casual tone as he lit a cigarette and handed the case to his patient. Let me see. Oh, I know. I was worrying my way through poor old Eber's papers and things. I'm his executor, you know. Then I got weary and came out for a whiff of air." He spoke lightly and with perfect naturalness. Obviously he was telling the truth. "I prefer specimens to papers," he laughed cheerily. I know," said Dr. Stephen, holding a lighted match for the cigarette. His face wore an expression of content. The experiment had been a complete success. The memory of the last 2 hours was wiped out utterly. Laidlaw was already chatting gaily and easily about a dozen other things that had interested him. Together they went out into the street, and at his door Dr. Stephen left him with a joke and a wry face that made his friend laugh heartily. "Don't dine on the professor's old papers by mistake," he cried as he vanished down the street. Dr. Laidlaw went up to his study at the top of the house. Halfway down he met his housekeeper, Mrs. Fewings. She was flustered and excited, and her face was very red and perspiring. "There have been burglars here," she cried excitedly, "or something funny. All your things is just anyhow, sir. I found everything about, everywhere." She was very confused. In this orderly and very precise establishment it was unusual to find a thing out of place. "Oh, my specimens!" cried the doctor, dashing up the rest of the stairs at top speed. "Have they touched or—" He flew through the door of the laboratory. Mrs. Fewings panted up heavily behind him. "The laboratory ain't been touched," she exclaimed breathlessly. "But they smashed the library clock. They've hung your gold watch, sir, in the skeleton's hands. And the books weren't no value. They flung her out the window, just like so much rubbish. They must have been wild drunk, Dr. Laidlaw, sir." The young scientist made a hurried examination of the room. Nothing of value was missing. He began to wonder what kind of burglars they were. He looked up sharply at Mrs. Fewing standing in the doorway. For a moment he seemed to cast about in his mind for something. "Odd," he said at length. "I only left here an hour ago, and everything was all right then." "Was it, sir?" "Yes, sir." She glanced sharply at him. Her room looked out upon the courtyard, and she must have seen the books come crashing down, and also have heard her master leave the house a few minutes later. "And what's this rubbish the brutes have left?" he cried, taking up 2 slabs of worn grey stone on the writing table. "Bath brick or something, I do declare." He looked very sharply again at the confused and troubled housekeeper. "Throw them in the dust heap, Mrs. Fewings, and let me know if anything is missing in the house, and I will notify the police this evening." When she left the room, he went into the laboratory and took his watch off the skeleton's fingers. His face wore a troubled expression, but after a moment's thought it cleared again. His memory was a complete blank. "I suppose I left it on the writing table and when I went out to take the air," he said. And there was no one present to contradict him. He crossed to the window and blew carelessly some ashes of burned paper from the sill, and stood watching them as they floated away lazily over the tops of the trees. There we go. So what do we think of that one? That was definitely a good one. We love the voices. Disturbing? Yes, very much. Tad creepy, yep. Was so hooked till the ending. Awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad you liked it. Very much. Very, very much. Although hypnotherapy is a joke. Hypnotherapy? I want to go through some hypnotherapy. I want to be hypnotized. I'm glad you liked that one. I get tired, I get punchy, and I start doing weird voices, and it's just, it's all downhill from there. I just want to do like Shakespeare as like a gangster, To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing end them. That's enough of that. Oh, God. Keep going. I don't have the script in front of me. I wish I did. You fell asleep, sunshine? Well, I'll take that as a compliment. That's what you're reading next week. Shakespeare is read by Tony Soprano. You don't need a script, yeah. Now, this funny thing is if you go back to Joe Pesci does Shakespeare. Friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your ears. I've come here to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do, it lives after them. The good, often interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar. Oh, God. That one I could do by heart, because I remember that one. I know that I used to do that one a long time ago. I did a recording of it. Oh, God, almost 2 years ago now. The noble Brutus had told you that Caesar was ambitious. If it was so, there was a grievous fault. And grievously hath Caesar answered it. Oh, you finished Nexus. What did you think of it? Do Fred Gwynn next. Come here under the leave of Brutus and the rest. Brutus is an honorable man. They all honorable men. Oh, boy. Oh, you liked it? Cool. I will definitely let the author know. He's a good dude. Awesome. I'm glad you did. No, I don't want to go down that road. There was an audiobook that I was working on that had to come to an end, had to be dissolved because it was, one of the characters got the full Maine accent treatment. It was so funny. No, just traveling the road. Seen me some strange things. I know. I'm sure I did. Just make y'all yawn. So, let's see. So I've set a goal, and I was going to say something about it. Travolta as Hamlet. Oh, God. I don't think I have a Travolta. Oh, man. I'd have to work on that one. So I'm currently at 7 super fans. I'd love to get to 10. You know, just saying. That would just be awesome. Another recommendation. Definitely Banebirth if you haven't listened to it yet. It's a fantastic one. I have one coming up that's a dual narration. Twisted Tunes. That sounds familiar. I have one coming up that's a dual narration that I think is supposed to be coming out in August, but I will keep you guys posted. It is definitely a little spicy. I gave Tessa a sneak peek of it today, and she can attest that it's rather spicy. Yep. I have to list that one as UndeadPapa After Dark. That's one I will not be able to preview on, because if TikTok doesn't like this, it's definitely not going to like that. Oh, Harry Potter voiced by Cartman. That's you guys. Screw you guys. I'm going home. I love that one. You can't wait for that one. Well, you know, I'll let you guys know as soon as it is released. It is very good. I am enjoying it. The author has already said that she wants myself and the primary narrator back for the second and third book. Interesting piece of trivia. So initially, this first book had a little bit of spice in it. Sunshine, the recommend. I'll give you the title in chat if you have not read it yet. Is BANBIRTH by K. J. Smith. Oops, yeah, I can spell. Oh, what is with my keyboard today? Yes, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. That would be well. If I get approached, I'll be like, yeah, I know somebody. She's all kinds of spicy. She's spicy and she's from Texas. Yeah, it's a fun book, and the author's a great guy. He's here on TikTok. I know a guy. Oh, Vinnie Barbarino is Trevor. Wow, that's a pull, man. I mean, like, I remember Welcome Back, Kotter when it was actually on. God, I'm old. Oh, if you guys want some fun stuff, one of my mutuals and fellow voice actor goes by the name of Voice God. And that is not an overstatement. The dude is awesome. He's been doing some dark retellings of Saturday morning cartoons, and they are freaking awesome. Holy shit. That's very specific, Tessa. That you would, yeah, that's all you. That is all you. Oh man. Yeah, no, the latest one he did, the one he did today, they posted it today, was Pepe Le Pew. And then yesterday he did Heckle and Jekyll. I've kind of put a bug in his ear a couple of times for Hong Kong Phooey, which that was brilliant. And I'm really hoping he'll do like Underdog. Yeah, that was so good. So good stuff. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Candyman one he did was fantastic. Dude's got a voice like butter. Like butter. No, if we do, I've already locked him in for, if we do a live Night of the Living Dead. I've already locked him in as Ben for that. Hong Kong Phooey, man. He also did Captain Caveman, which if you have not seen that one, it is absolutely awesome. He goes by Voice God. And that is not an understatement. He owns that name. Yeah. Good dude, too. Absolutely just a sweetheart of a human being. Love the guy to death. But yeah, he's locked in as Sherman and Peabody. That would be freaking awesome. I kind of was hinting around Rocky and Bullwinkle the other day. Yeah. All of his stuff is just fantastic. Him and I collaborated on one a little while back. The Charlotte's Web. Yes, you do. Him and I collaborated a while back on a Frankenstein's monster piece that he wrote, and asked me to voice it. It was phenomenal. I loved it. So good. Yeah. So if I know a few people have ordered UndeadPapa merch, which I am incredibly thankful for. There's been 10 orders already. I'm not even a week into the launch, and there's already been 10 orders, which is freaking awesome. I figure every 5,000 followers, I'm going to launch a new piece of merch. I think the next one, yes, you did. Yay! Oh, I can't wait. Tessa, you'll have to wear that when we do our live. Show it off. And here we have Tessa Vale with her UndeadPapa shirt. Yes. That's awesome. Yeah, and if anybody else is looking, the link is in my bio. It's at the top of that page. That's the UndeadPapa Mercantile. The address is... Oh, yeah, Danielle, he does. Yeah. You kidding me? He makes me go wild. That voice? You kidding me? Whew. Yeah, I'm in touch with my masculinity, but Jesus Christmas. Yeah, the shirts take a little bit longer. It really depends on where they're shipping them from because they have a bunch of different facilities that actually manufacture the product, and they have them in different countries as well. So that's why they can ship all over the place. But yeah, I think my next shirt is probably, or next design is going to be something like a official Storytime Goblin shirt. Yeah. Oh, check out his video of where he sings My Funny Valentine. So good. So freaking good. I have to go ask him if his ears are burning because we're talking about him. Oh, yeah. But yeah, so I'm gonna be, I'm gonna try to do some regular stuff. I have some designs that I had up there from my previous life as an artist, and I think some of them you guys would like to. There's one that definitely, absolutely worthwhile. There's one that I have that says this is my official horror movie watching shirt, and it's got the creepy letters and it's got blood splatter on it. It's so cool. And then I've got a handful of other ones. I've got one that's got like a Cthulhu head on it, but it's got a Santa hat on it, and it says he sees you when you're sleeping. I'll do that one for Christmas. I've got to do an UndeadPapa Christmas one too, so I'll have to figure that one out. But yeah, but now that I have people that actually follow me, you guys might want to. People might actually buy them. My memory has never been good. Like, I am that person that you can I can shake your hand, you can tell me your name, and about 5 seconds later, even while I'm still talking to you, I will have completely forgotten it. Absolutely, just right out of my brain. Gone. See you later. Goodbye. I've been that way since I was a kid. Really think it's the ADHD. It's that whole out of sight, out of mind. What was the author of that? I'd have to look. I can't remember. Oh, definitely ADHD. Yeah, very likely autistic. But I've only been diagnosed with one. See, I grew up, I went to elementary school in the 80s, so ADHD wasn't a thing. Well, you'll just have to get to 50 and find out. I'm terrible with just about everything. Like, I have my best friend and I, we've come up with this saying, because she's just as bad as I am. It's don't put it down, put it away. Nice. Yeah, no, I got my ADHD diagnosis when I was 48. Yep. What's amazing about that though? What's really kind of wild is how validating it ends up being. And I'll tell you how I discovered mine. And how I ended up pursuing the diagnosis. So my mother was she's a records pack rat. So she saved all of my report cards from elementary school. And of course I inherited the same gene, so of course I have all of my oldest daughter's report cards, and she is autistic and has ADHD. One of those high functioning kids. It's like a 4.0 in college and all that stuff. It's just crazy smart. But there's some of the basics that slip by her. But she's like me. Well, I didn't realize how much she was like me until I was like going through these old report cards of mine, and I'm reading the teacher comments. And I'm like, boy, that sounds, I hadn't read them in forever. So I'm looking at them going, that sounds familiar. So I go and I pull out my daughter's, her report cards from the same years. And I shit you not, they were almost word for word identical. And I was like, I wonder. So that's when I pursued the diagnosis and got it. And when you realize that, like, I wasn't a bad kid. My brain just worked different. I looked at, yes, you are responsible for your behavior, but the things that were driving me were not, that was the realization that they were not my fault. I mean, you want to talk about just a liberating realization that for all these years I had thought that I was a bad kid. Yeah, but it's I started on medication and it helped for a while because I also have I'll be real with you guys for a minute here, but I also have an eating disorder, binge eating disorder. And come to find out, binge eating disorder actually often goes hand in hand with ADHD because it's an impulse control issue. So I started thinking about all of these things and how they all tie in together. And then, being diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic, back in 2014, there were a lot of things that made sense. It was because then you start to realize how much your blood sugar, high or low, messes with your brain. I was dealing with depression and anxiety and all that. Well, guess what? Blood sugar makes your depression worse. High blood sugar. And then it's like high blood sugar makes your depression worse. Your depression affects your ADHD and anxiety and all that stuff. And you end up, now I can't control my binge eating because of the depression is so bad. But then I can't, because of my binge eating, now I can't control my blood sugar. And it's this big freaking circle of, this constant round and round that you go through. And, just getting all of that information is, twinsies. Getting all of that information is just, it is mind-bendingly interesting. It's funny because my therapist once asked me, she's like, why do you want this diagnosis? I said, because it's information. Because I have, that information allows me to go and do my own reading and research, and it lets me, say, okay, I have this thing. How do I help it? So I can go and actually, do research on my own. And, it's not, I'm not doing it because I want to be able to go, hey, I got, ADHD, which, who does that, But yeah. Yeah. Well, there are days where, and my daughter gets on my case about it, where I'll go upstairs. I'll be down in my studio and I'll be recording or working on something for the next live stream or, whatever. And I'll have been up since 9:00 in the morning because I work until, midnight, 1:00 sometimes. And I'll go upstairs at like 10 and I'll be like, man, I think I need to eat something. My daughter will be like, you haven't eaten anything today. And I'm like, no, what do you mean? Of course I haven't. I get so fixated on some task and I'll just not eat all day. Or I'll do the exact opposite and I'll just eat my way through the day, which is awful and sucks, but that's okay. It happens. But the thing is just getting, weird. Why am I shaking? Well, this can't be good. And like my heart will start going weird and I'll be like, why is it doing that? I'm not doing anything. Oh, yeah. Yeah, hyperfixation is one of those. Yep. Yeah, did you eat? Nope. Are all the brownies gone, Tessa? You didn't send any to me? So, you know what's funny is I bought cake mix the other day because I've been wanting cake. Don't know why. I just want cake. So I bought cake mix. I guarantee you it's going to sit in the cabinet for a week before I actually make it. Because honestly, like I'll wake up in the morning and not even remember that it's there. I'll be like, oh, whatever. And I'll be like, oh, I want cake, and then it'll be like 12 o'clock at night. I'm going, I'm not making cake at midnight. No, sorry. Some Papa approved brownies would be special happy brownies. I do like the special happy brownies. Oh, I gotta show you guys something. So 2 years ago at Spirit Halloween, I found this. It's supposed to be an ice cube mold. I don't know if you can see it. It's Jason masks. I seriously want to make chocolates where I want to paint the white and the red and the black and then do the chocolate, but I want it to be special chocolate. Special send me on a trip chocolate. Or just make giant gummies. That would be awesome. But I started collecting these. I've got these, and I've got Han Solo and Carbonite. Right. Yup. Yeah. I've got Han Solo and Carbonite. I've got some three-dimensional, like full like skulls, which are really cool. I've got a bunch of. I picked them, and then it's like I wait until they go on clearance at Michael's, and then I'll go and buy the molds. And I've got a bunch of, like, especially Halloween. I've got some weird Halloween molds that are really so cool. Not that you'd know. Is that even legal in your neck of the woods, Tessa? Have they made that legal in Texas? You know, Texas? It's finally legal here, which is awesome. Oh. Yeah. Oh, can of butter is so good. Garlic bread with can of butter. Yeah. Whatever do I mean? I don't mean anything. I don't know. I really can't talk about this on live, but at this point, I don't give a shit. Yes, we're talking about chocolate. Oh, so great, hilarious story. Yeah. One of these days I'll make it down to Mexico. Buttermilk pie with special butter. Ooh. I've done quite a bit of Poe, actually. I've done The Oblong Box, Premature Burial, Telltale Heart. What else have we done? Cask of Amontillado. Yeah. So, funny story. My sister travels a lot. And she came home one time from overseas with this box of chocolates. I thought nothing of it. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, we'll be back on Friday night with a new story, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we'll be back again on Sunday when we'll be starting Peter Pan. Same time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So anyway, she brings these. We're sitting at my parents' house, right? My oldest daughter's there, my mom and dad, and her. And she comes up to the table, and I'm sitting there talking to my mother. She comes up to me at the table, and she drops a piece of chocolate on my plate. And I'm like, oh, that looks good. And I looked at her, and I'm like, huh? She goes, uh-huh. And I'm like, okay. So I popped it in my mouth, and it tasted so good. Like, you couldn't even taste the special part of it. So I ate it. And then my mother and my daughter, my sister, all go to another room, and they're watching TV. And I decide to go sit on the couch. And it's got a recliner in the couch. So I put the reclining feet up, and I'm just laying there. And, oh God, half hour later, the my sister comes out and she goes, "How are you feeling?" I'm going, good. I think my body's vibrating. And so, like, so we drive home, my daughter and I, and I thought I was fine. No big deal. So we're driving home, and my daughter's not saying anything. She's not noticing anything weird. We get to my street, and I get to my street, and I back into the driveway, and my daughter looks at me, and she goes, "Dad, what the hell are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what am I doing?" She goes, "You're in the wrong driveway." And I went, oops. I had pulled into my neighbor's driveway. So, yeah. So I pulled out and I pulled into the correct driveway, and we went inside, and I proceeded to go to sleep. And then I called my sister the next day, and I was like, "Okay, if you're going to do that, you need to do it earlier in the night." And I told her this story, and she's like, "Oh my God, I feel awful." Her main reason for feeling awful was the fact that I had my daughter in the car with me. Not that she had accidentally drugged me, but it was because my daughter was in the car. That was such a fun night. No, geez. Oh, Tessa, that's a oof. I bet. So I went out we have reservations out here that's totally legal on, and I went out there, and for $25 I bought a chocolate bar, and it's looks like a Wonka bar. Well, it's divided into 10 squares. Each one of those squares has 100 milligrams in it. I'm like, I can't do 100 milligrams at once. I did it one time just to find out. Holy cow. I think I was like down for a whole day after that. It was so bad. Anyway, I'm going to call it a night. And yeah. So like I said, thank you all for spending a little time with me here tonight by the campfire. It is medicinal. I'll tell you, but here's the thing, and this is, I am firmly entrenched in this idea that it doesn't actually do anything to end your pain, to like stop the pain. It just makes you not care. The pain's still there. You just don't care. Anyway, all right. Well, join me on Friday for another journey into the strange as we read A Bit of the Dark World by Fritz Leiber. And then on Sundays, we begin Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. We'll do, that's probably going to take us actually 2 Sundays and Mondays to finish. If you enjoy these stories and would like to help support what I do here, please consider subscribing or becoming a super fan, or visiting the UndeadPapa Mercantile to pick up some merch. Every bit of support helps keep the campfire lit. So, until then, please be kind to each other. And be kind to yourself. Because kindness matters. And so do you. Have a good night, everybody. Good night over there on the tubes. I appreciate you guys. I really